The rumors of the Joe Budden podcast come to light. Melyssa Ford did indeed ask Joe Budden to choose between her and Flip. Oh yeah, that's probably likely. Also, Melyssa Ford did try to get it ish. And did Melyssa Ford try to exchange certain things to move to New York? And Joe's girl found out? Yeah, that's right. On Twitter Spaces, there's been a recent upheaval, one that involves the community that is attached to Joe Budden but not ran by Joe Budden, the JBTV Twitter community. Now, some of you might be thinking, why does this matter? Well, it turns out that a lot of the cast members are DMing fans in the back channels, and the information is coming out because people are confiding in these fans. And someone who's confiding in the fans, Joe Budden's girl. Now, she's not the only one. I think there's Ish. I also think there's other members like Emani who might be revealing the inner workings of the show. Now, this also might give us insight into how the people keep finding out things about what's going on in the walls of that room. The mole isn't me or Ian. The mole is everyone on the show. But let's get to the first biggest rumor that I think is essentially confirmed. So this rumor centers on the theory that has been prevalent throughout the time Melyssa Ford has been on the show. She doesn't rock with Flip. Well, tensions would boil over when she would have her last episode on the Joe Budden podcast. It is alleged that she would get told off by Flip and that she would go to Joe Budden and tell him, me or Flip.
Melyssa Ford reportedly gave Joe an ultimatum. Flip leaves or I leave. Joe chose neither. She then allegedly pretended to be mentally unwell and worked her way out of her contract.
But that's what he told me, that she basically just, created something and just kind of got out of there, that she felt she wasn't protected. And that Flip kind of literally flipped on her, that episode, that they didn't put it on the camera. They didn't put it on the camera or whatever, or they didn't.
This makes sense. This makes sense because in a couple episodes ago, Flip said to Mona, like, he made a mistake in calling the last woman his sister.
But Joe Budden would not act and say that he's choosing both of them. As a result of this, Melyssa Ford would make the next move and choose to say that she was under mental duress to get out of her obligation to the Joe Budden podcast. Now, this theory would explain a lot. Why was the Joe Budden podcast so adamant that Melyssa Ford would return? Because she likely had a contract, but she would play the ultimate card. Hey, my mental health. Still, I don't know if that was wrong on her part, because at the end of the day, working with Flip is a lot. And when you add working with Joe Budden and Flip, I think that would drive a lot of women insane. There's another rumor that I think is less engaging and probably more of a reach, but I could see a certain fact of it that I think probably was the case, and I'll get into that at the end of me saying the rumor. It was this idea that Melyssa Ford tried to trade favors and that Joe's girl would find out, and she shut it down immediately.
Sade went through his phone. I was told that Sade went through his phone, found the information, and was like, and cut that down. And Melissa's made comments before where she said on the pod that she don't really care about girlfriends. She only cares about wives. So it's possible that Melyssa may have thought that Sade wasn't a staple, in his life, that they worked together.
I just feel like that rumor is so crazy to me, because why would Sade let Melyssa stay around for that long?
Well, notice this. There was a post that Sade had on Twitter, and she said, she had said, I have to pull the Twitter, but she said something right when we thought that Melyssa was leaving and Melyssa never came back. Right after the drama, she was like, I told you were going to lose your job or something like that. I'm paraphrasing, but she posted something on Twitter, basically insinuating she's not coming back, but nobody caught that. And then she tried to act like it wasn't about that. I don't know.
Now, this was a rumor that is sourced from secondhand account, but we do indeed know that Joe's girl was messaging members of the mod community on the JBTV Twitter page. There was a lot of things going on behind the scenes, and to me, what this sounds like is the mind of a jealous woman who would take some type of correspondence between two people and take it to mean that some type of favors were being exchanged, but it was really just the early going-ons of a business deal. As for what type of dynamic Melyssa Ford and Joe Budden and Sade would have, I have no clue, but I do know that there was one time Sade was asked by Melyssa Ford to walk her dog.
A dog needed to go to the bathroom. She said, hey, can you do me a favor and go walk my dog?
I did not say that.
She ain't say walk the dog.
I did not say
that.
Well, just a pee-pee. And only because we were
You think this is a better version of what we just heard?
So I would think they probably not that cool, and I don't know, man. It's something that is on the table. But the most interesting part is that Joe Budden's girl is messaging the fans. And this is proven by this tweet exchange on here, where Joe Budden's girl would go back and forth with a fan of the Joe Budden podcast. The initial tweet was, Sade needs to stop feeding who is a mod of the JBTV community all that private tea. He runs straight to so-and-so, and so-and-so runs to so-and-so and the whole crew. And suddenly, they're all gossiping in that filthy little private Discord. He is literally a gossip girl, holding all that mess together. Now, Sade would respond saying, hey, hun, I don't know what you're speaking about. I don't tell anyone tea. Any correspondence I have had is about my involvement in pod things, which is not tea. Because they see me interact with her on here publicly in a friendly manner, they will lie because it can seem factual. My loyalty is to my man, and his business is not anyone's on X. So I would never do or say anything to jeopardize that. I don't know who is making things up and lying, but it's big cap. This is X. We live real lives outside of this. I'm never spending my time speaking on my man and his business on Twitter. That's absurd. Please leave money out of whatever drama is going on here. Thank you and have a blessed day. Now, this tweet wasn't necessarily the steadfast denial. She could have said, I have never done that, but her tweet response will let me know she is indeed messaging members of the JBTV community, and this is where a lot of leaks might be coming from. Now, there's also other leaks that would come out, and that is that Melyssa Ford did try to get at Ish, which is why she never minded the rumors and innuendos about that storyline.
Melyssa Ford allegedly tried to get at Ish, but he wasn't having it, which is why she wasn't bothered by the rumors and narratives.
I can say from my research of the show that the Melyssa Ford Ish storyline was closely rooted in reality, and that Melyssa Ford probably was feeling Ish, and Ish just didn't like how Melyssa Ford was carrying it. So he began to distance himself and never wanted anything to do with her, which would be reflected on air when he genuinely seemed disgusted by Melyssa Ford. But then there was another rumor. Emani and Melyssa Ford.
Emani and Melyssa Ford allegedly hooked up at Joe's birthday party and a few times after. Then Melyssa ended it.
Oh yeah, everybody knew about this, and it almost was revealed as soon as the next day after the party. Melyssa Ford and Emani allegedly hooked up, and a few times after they would also engage in a dalliance, which aligns with some of the stuff I've been hearing about them going on, lunch dates and whatnot. But another side piece to this is that Melyssa Ford would go on to dead him, and that is why the situation would seemingly end abruptly. So Melyssa Ford would try to get at Ish, but then Emani and Melyssa Ford would allegedly, this is all alleged, but we do know at the very base level of this is that it's coming from the source of people being connected to the podcast. Joe Budden's girl wasn't the only one who might have been messaging fans from the community. Allegedly, this is just alleged, the Muffin Man himself would be reached out to by some harlots of the community, and they would ask for merch.
Allegedly sent in personal to Ish in exchange for merch and diapers.
Not just any merch, but that's that Ish hoodies. Go on his site and buy some. And diapers. Apparently there was some pictures shared. Your mind can run with what type of pictures were shared in order to get some diapers, and that's that Ish hoodies. Now, this is just a reflection of what that person may have done, not necessarily Ish, but man, everybody on the show is talking to fans of the community. They're feeding the information. They're trying to control the narratives. They're playing into their separate stand bases. And what does this mean to me? Well, it means to me that I think Emani, Melyssa Ford, Joe's girl are all conversing with fans. This is just my theory. That's why things are coming out. And I also believe that Joe Budden is doing the same, but I think he's doing it in a way that's strategic and he's not really revealing too much. But there's also Ish. Ish is definitely talking to fans. I'm telling y'all that right now. He's always talking about some dude that's sending him information about how much they mention him on the spaces. He has a lot of resentment about how much he gets brought up in the spaces commentary. So that's, I think, definitely true. And here's another thing. Parks isn't doing it. Ice isn't doing it. And Mark Lamont Hill himself isn't doing it. I think Mark Lamont is talking to fans, but he's not saying anything about what's going on behind the scenes. This whole podcast has a bunch of leaks. People behind the scenes may not be feeling like things are going to their liking. So they're confiding in fans, and all of their information is being shared on secret discords. So to summarize once again, Melyssa Ford gave Joe Budden an ultimatum. Joe Budden, hey, it's either me or Flip. And Joe said neither. And when he did that, she said, I have mental duress because of the environment you have created with Flip being here. So let me out of my contract. And Joe Budden had no other choice but to let her do that. Probably given his history of women who've been on the podcast, just let her go. And on top of that, Melyssa Ford is taking some amazing pictures as her podcast returns on November 11th. Will she address the drama? Probably, maybe, or not. Also, there's this weird rumor that Melyssa Ford tried to trade favors for rent money in New York or whatnot. I don't believe that. I think that is just the mind of a scorned romantic partner who is just exaggerating things and confiding in fans on Twitter. Then the other rumor is that Melyssa Ford did try to get at Ish, which I think at this point is confirmed, but not all the way confirmed. It just looks like it. It's coming from too many sources. And that Emani and Melyssa Ford did hook up at Joe's party and a few times after. Now, that is another rumor and innuendo, but I mean, it's just too much fire, man. It's too much fire. So I have to go back, and definitely I got to play the clip of Emani talking about this situation on my podcast.
Let me address this in a very careful way because I don't want it to be confused.
Why I gotta be careful?
Because we're talking about a woman here.
Okay.
Right? Why do y'all care that much?
Because y'all talk about it.
Okay, I don't talk about it. That I've never done anything with this woman. I said it myself. I didn't even wait for her to say. I'm not even going to leave it for anyone to think anything. This is my colleague. This is somebody I work with, someone I respect. There's nothing to it. I did not leave the party with anyone else. I didn't hook up with anyone else. I left the party, and when she got off work, went and got her, we went home together.
So there you have it, guys. What do you think about these? Oh my God. I don't even know how to, I was going to say these, this right here. Podcast fans. Oftentimes we talk about how the fan base is parasocial for the Joe Budden podcast, but it's a two-way street. And we also have to remember that these fans are not necessarily parasocial because the Joe Budden podcast is choosing to engage with them. A parasocial relationship is defined by a one-sided, unreciprocated dynamic, but no. Ish, Melyssa Ford, Joe Budden, Emani, they're engaging with these fans and they're giving them real tea on what's happening behind the scenes. Never mind Joe Budden's girl. So let's see what happens after this. Will the Joe Budden podcast and his co-host stop giving up information on the show? Does Joe Budden even care? Could it be that he enjoys this level of engagement and doesn't mind the inner secrets being exposed because he's the one that really calls the shots and the only person that has the truth about all of this 1000% is Joe Budden and Ian Schwartzman. With that said, let me know what you think. Are you a member of the JBTV community? Have you been observing all of this mess? Because the mess is actually really revealing, and it's not just conjecture on Twitter anymore as a result of the fan members actually being engaged by members of the show. With that said, a lot of this space drama is on my Patreon, and you will be able to know what other storyline is happening in the JBTV community If you subscribe to it, $5, you can binge. Now there's about 350 pieces of content, and I think you'll really enjoy it. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.